don't have any questions right now.
No, you're good to go. Good. Most people, everything went very well. Everybody handed in their assignments and they were great and it was just fine. I'm going to close this little window. I'm going to get pretty soon. I think I'll share the screen. I've just sent out the announcement to everybody. Let me double check that every class got that. Let's just see. Yep. Okay. So we're recording, so if people come late, they can kind of check it out. Hopefully they can hop on their email and oh, there we go. It's Lucas, very good. So you just got that on your email and you clicked and here you are, correct? Lucas, is that what you did? You guys were just looking at your email, the announcement came up and there you go. All right, so we're recording and I'm going to share my screen with you. And I'm going to begin going through a couple of the things from the assignments. Hopefully people will come along, and if not, they can look at the recording. Again, it won't take too long. We're just going to cover a couple things. I think I'm going to do the whole desktop here.
Wait, so is that going to be the new Zoom link that we have to click on?
You know what? I have to try to fix it again. I fixed it last time and it wouldn't let me be the host. So I'm not sure why that would occur. So I'll just assume that I'll send you the link. How about if we do that? It's not very hard to do. I just start a meeting and then invite you. So always check your email on the day of, because that link doesn't work for me. I think it works for you, but it won't let me be the host, and I need to be able to share the screen, and I need to be able to control everything, and I can't do it according to that link. And I went to the Zoom guys and they helped me. I'll try to fix it again, but if not, just look for a link on the email. There we go. Hello, people. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you. It's a little cluttered at the moment, but we're going to look at these class notes. All right, so one thing, can you see? Sophia? Are you piping up?
I'm sorry, I just realized I wasn't muted, so I was.
So you were piping up. All right, well, no, it's good. Okay, so these are the things, you know, I've read all your work. Everybody did great. The few little things along the way. And the irony of this Zoom when it's optional is, of course, the people who need to hear what I'm going to say probably aren't attending, but hopefully they will review the video, and I'll send out a couple of the tips. If there's a link that doesn't work, because you know the assignments that I've designed and all of the documents and there's all kinds of links, and sometimes they go defunct and I wouldn't necessarily know. So you can tell me, email me, or just say, hey, the link's not working, and I can either send you a new one and I can fix the one that's there. But remember, for all the readings and the TED Talks, they're also over here. They're in modules. My little desk is a little cluttered, but if you're just thumbing down through your modules, you'll see there's lots of other materials there for you, kind of as backup. You don't have to worry about essay assignments really, but those are examples that you can look at if you're not sure how to do something, how to write a paragraph, etc. But here's readings, okay? So if for some reason a link didn't work somewhere in the assignment, because sometimes within Canvas a link won't transfer, I don't know, something happens. Anyway, so all of them are here. And I will also say to you that the TED Talks you can just Google them. You can find them very easily. So you don't, and the transcripts are actually on the TED Talks. There's a little sign that says transcript. So if you get jammed that way, but it's really helpful to me if you let me know if a link is out of commission, then I can figure them out. Okay, so this part I'm going to say, and it's going to sound preposterous, but the thing that is troubling some students at this point is they did not read the words. And if I say read the words, I mean of the assignment and of the text that you're navigating. So first of all, in the assignment, it wasn't that I was being evil and tricking you, but the first assignment of summary, as most of you realized, had two parts. First, you had to take 2 tips from the summary slides. And I did that because in those slides, is everything you really need to know for academic writing. It could not be more important. So I wanted to make sure that you had to go to that link, and then there you would see these slides.
Mama.
Yeah, so
Mama.
what? Somebody needs to mute. Okay, so introducing a text, I would say, you know, in quotation marks before any discussion. So you, and hopefully you all looked at this, because these little slides right here are going to save your bacon. This is how you do academic writing, just the kind of formality of it. What does it look like? Here's 2 examples. And here is a whole paragraph that shows you how to write in this MLA format. And then this slide, most people found extremely helpful, things not to do. So it was very obvious to me that people did not look at this when they wrote says, talks about, they overgeneralized, etc. So it was mostly says and talks about, stated is not even great, but this don't slide was really helpful to a lot of people. But the people who didn't look at the slides, it was very evident to me they hadn't looked at them because they made these mistakes. So it was very obvious, and they didn't answer the first question. So there's another thing where in this online world, you really have to read the assignment, and I'm putting links in there now. Okay, maybe I'm a little link happy, but I want to give you examples. I want to, and these slides, I'm just telling you, they give you almost all of the strategies you need as far as the rules of academic writing goes. You know, they won't show you how to be logical or sequential, or, you know, how to, you know, construct a very articulate thought and sentence sequence, something like that. But they give you the bare bones of how you have to go about it. So I made it so you had to click on it, and it was very obvious to me when you didn't. And that was me kind of saying, hey, everybody, you really got to read the words, all of them. And before that, I gave extra credit at the bottom of an assignment to see that you read it. And some people did read it and they got the extra credit, because I would say, hey, if you use this phrase, and it was kind of fun, you had to say some phrase, the secret word. So this is just my way of saying to you that you have to read the words. So glance and go. And believe me, I am right there with you. I don't want to read everything. I don't want to do everything. I just realized that I'm always looking for YouTube videos that are as short as possible. That's why I made those slides. They are as short as possible. You can go back to them. They give you the do's and don'ts. So I'm just giving you a heads up. You may, I mean, because, you know, you're on the other side of this thing, but I'm telling you that if you read these slides, there's only, I think there's 2 punctuations, writing a analytical paragraph, and the summary. Those are 4 slides that are really going to be pivotal in your understanding and how you go about doing this academic writing. Now, your thoughts and your creativity, that's all you. But these other things, you've got to, that's how you get to enter the academic conversation. I also had a video where I was talking about it. I mean, maybe it's overkill, but better to overkill than to skip over. Okay. So the assignment A5 had 2 parts. You had to do that. And there's one other thing I want to say about close reading. Close reading, of course, does not only apply to the assignments. My God, it applies to the readings. That's the biggest thing in the world. And I just wanted to call your attention to this part here. Just look at where I highlight. If you don't read closely, usually it's not even a fault of anyone's, it's just the first time you hear or read something, you are missing some things, and your mind is going to fill it in with something else or something that you already thought, and you won't even notice it. It's just a natural human brain function to fill in gaps. Because, you know, when you're reading and then your attention wanders and something was said or you didn't process it, because I think we've all had the experience of seeing a movie the second time or reading something the second time, and you're like, oh. And I can tell you for sure that happens to me all the time. I've read a lot of these readings, you know, multiple times, and I still say, oh, all right, I didn't get the subtlety of that particular point. Anyway, so this student filled this in. So we're talking about Adichie, you know, the single story. And the student is writing about due to only reading books. This is a case of where the student filled in something that wasn't there. Okay, only reading books with rich white people and how different their lives were. Okay, the only thing that isn't in there is rich. And it was really British and American and Western people. And if you know anything about literature, you know that it's not about rich people, it's about poor people, rich. It's, you know, the whole pageantry of life is usually paraded through the pages of good literature. But it's just a small reminder that if you do not read the words, I'm nagging you about the assignments, but of the text, you're going to think some things and you're going to fill them in and they're not in the text. So this is an inaccurate representation of the text. And, you know, it's just not what was said, and there can be a misreading and a misrepresentation. And then that screws you up, because if you're going to write an essay about this, you have to have gotten it straight. Now, this is a small, you know, mistake, which might not blow everything, but it is a tip off to me that there was a kind of a, maybe there was a cursory, quick reading of the text. Okay, so that's just, you know, part of how your mind goes. So just be aware that your mind is going to fill in things that aren't there. So that's why I always say, have the text next to you. Now, I don't know what your habits are. Maybe you have it, sometimes I have it on a split screen. And sometimes as I was reading your work, I had to go back to the text. I said, wait, was that in there? What? And I would have to go back and look and find it. And I would say to you, now, hopefully on Google Docs and on Canvas, I am making comments, and I will say, some people kept referring to the TED Talk as a story, and it is not a story. It has stories in it, but it is not a story. And I will be telling you, I'm giving you some tips, and hopefully you are reading those, because if you're not going to read them, you're not going to make progress if you're kind of going off track a little bit here and there. So let me see this. So those slides are important. And these first couple of assignments, I'm giving you a lot of feedback, okay? And that I'm not going to be giving you that detailed feedback every single time. I'm doing it at the beginning so that you can reorganize yourself. You've got examples, you've got samples. I'm saying, whoa, look out here. Here you did this. What's going on here? So that you can fix it, okay? So these first two summary assignments are pretty much you writing in an MLA, you know, format, and me saying, it went off track here, check this sentence, you know, what's going on here. And I gave you tips and strategies. And sometimes I will try to link you back to the summary slides, or I will put in a different link if I think it's going to be helpful to you. But on the comments, sometimes I have to put the whole link. I can't, you know, name it and make it blue. It just won't do that in the comments. Okay, so here's another thing that was going on. Some of you were writing this phrase, the author quotes, but all they meant to say, they were trying to use that like argues or claims. The author quotes that the stories are not true, they're just incomplete. The author, only say the author quotes if the author is quoting someone else, all right? And says and talks about. So here's some other words if you want to ever look back. Admits, claims, argues, describes, explains, complains, defines, delves into. There's a lot of words that you can use that are more precise, and they kind of make things much more lively and interesting than says or states. So there we go. And then this is what and here it is. And here's the link. You know, I'm not going to get off this because that will tell you not to do that. All right. So, you know, and it's a really normal thing to do. The author says, especially in TED Talks, they're going to be saying you, and they're going to be saying says, and they're going to be kind of using colloquial, meaning conversational language that even if the speaker is using it, remember, they're giving a speech, you're writing a paper. So the tone is going to be more academic. And plus we want to practice that kind of writing. So even if the author or the speaker is using that kind of language, you're going to try your best not to put too much of that in there. It's not that there can't be any says or talks about it, or you, is not zero, but it should not be the predominant tone and rhythm and pattern of academic writing. All right, and there's a reason for it. It's more precise. You can say things in more specifically. It hones and harnesses your thinking to be more logical and sequentially, you know, coherent. Okay, so, and remember this about quotes. When you use a quote, it needs to be integrated into your sentence. You have to be in command of the quote, and it has to be grammatically correct in your sentence. And you know, there's all kinds of little tricks with the little parentheses. If it says she and it should be her for your sentence. And I'll tell you the truth, I don't remember all of those rules. I tend to mess around with the sentence and only use that part of the quote that works out. I just revise it sometimes if I feel like I have to know some complicated rule of ellipses, which are ... or half of the quote and then half of the quote. Sometimes if I feel getting over my head with the technical aspect of the quote, I just simplify it and rewrite the sentence so it's different. And so only part of the quote is in there. Some of you, if you did like a 3-line quote, better to have more integrated paraphrase with shorter quotes. So that's another tip. Here are some words I found in an academic summary. I found someone who wrote a bunch. You know, we're not doing that. These are conversational words, and a lot. A lot is the biggest offender, okay? Because it's so handy. You know, so you'll be tempted, and I say, you know, maybe it could make one appearance, but it's not really our best choice for academic writing. Stuff, no. The thing was, you know, so that's not a phrase you're going to want to use. Somebody referred to a roommate as a roomie. And then another writer keeps saying, well, now, as if this academic thing is sort of a bedtime story kind of a thing. So you're not going to want to be chit-chatty. There's another thing that happens that you don't want to do, and I call it an announcement, where you say, I will now describe the theme of the, you don't announce that you're doing it, and you don't announce what paragraph it came from. You'll see in the examples, there's none of that. Okay, so you want to see David Chung's response. It was great. I don't know if he's here, but he did a great job on it. So this is an example of what a good response to that first assignment would have looked like. So first of all, and here's the thing, he really was creative in the words he used other than says or describes. He really came up with some things. So I'm going to go through it with you just quickly, but this was a really good version. This was his response to the assignment. The summary got systematically use the author's last name in the summary so that it's always clear that the ideas are from the text, not you, the writer. Use words like argues, presents, suggests, develop, not says. So there's 2 tips, and those are good ones. All right, that's all you had to do is pick 2. They could have been from the don'ts, etc. Most people did this correctly, but when I didn't see the first part, there were often mistakes of this very nature in the second part. So there's a reason I'm putting links everywhere. Go to the links. All right, so this is his summary. It was good. Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie offers a unique and eye-opening outlook on the topic of stereotyping in her TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story. Everything's in there. Got the title in quotes. She's the Nigerian writer. And look at him. He's so lively. Unique and eye-opening outlook. In her talk, she begins by outlining. I underlined it. So there's another word you could use, outlining. Let's say, develops the idea. We'll put it up here, outlining her upbringing and strong influence that British American literature played in guiding her beliefs, suggesting that because the books she grew up with spoke frequently of foreigners, then books by their very nature had to have foreigners in them and had to be about things with which I could not personally identify. End of the quote. And for TED Talks, you don't have to put what paragraph it's from. That's kind of, I'm going to kind of take it or leave it on which paragraph it's from. You can sometimes go like this. You can go paragraph 5. If you're talking about a single text, that can be helpful if somebody's reading along, but it's not always an academic convention. All right, and that's usually if there's only one text. But if you don't do it for a TED Talk, it's easy enough for someone to go to the talk and see where that quote came from. Adichie continues, okay, so there's Adichie, systematic use of the author's last name, by sharing an anecdotal example, which means it's a sort of a story, where she unintentionally allows poverty to define the family's houseboy, Fide. A lot of you called Fide her friend, and that was a little bit of a misreading, like he was a childhood friend. And some of you forgot to mention the basket and why that, what happened in that incident that made it a version of the single story. An epiphany strikes her That's a really good one. He didn't write, she explains. An epiphany. So this is, he's got a really good example there of how you can really liven it up with the way that you use those words to say what's in something. When Fide's brother reveals a beautiful basket that contradicts her original impression. With this idea firmly anchored in her mind, she again finds, that's another one of those words, herself in the same boat when she visits Mexico, and she discovers, there's another one, that the stereotypes she unintentionally fabricated were also inaccurate. However, during Adichie's time in college, the circumstances are reversed when she's asked by her roommate to not only share her tribal music, but she's also asked whether or not she's aware of what a stove is. She concludes by asserting, again, these are all ways of not saying talks about, says, etc., that stereotypes are created when they make one story become the only story. And that's a good quote to use. Quote selection is very important. It's not willy-nilly. It always has to have something to do with what comes before and after it. It has to be integrated in sense, in logic. And that stereotypes, okay, so this last sentence is actually a fragment now that I read it, but, somehow he would have to revise that a little bit. Stereotypes emphasize our differences instead of our similarities, ultimately making our recognition of our equal humanity challenging. Okay, so very good. So that was a great response to that, and we're gonna just give you a chance to look at that and go, oh, okay, that's kind of a cool way of using all those words other than talks about. Now I'm just going to say this. Some of you, I did a lot of this. Okay, some of you are ready to go, but you have sentence joining problems. There are these two problems with punctuation. I'm going to call it punctuation, but it's really knowing what's a whole sentence, what's not, and how do you join them. And I'm going to warn you that sometimes when people talk about grammar and they use the language of grammar, like conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions, and people glaze over, they get scared. But what I've done here is I've boiled down the high impact mistakes. And these are the ones that if you did them, I likely sent you to these slides. Okay, so I'm going to just review them really quick. In sentence joining, let me see if I can get you over here. Oops. Let me, if I can move that. Hold on, I gotta minimize. Okay. There we go. All right, so we did this one, but I know it's grammar and it's but if I said something to you, if I sometimes I'll highlight a place where the sentences weren't joined, and maybe I put the link to this so to give you another chance to wrap your head around it. It's not that hard, but for some reason, people had, bad experiences talking about grammar, so they go, I can't do it. So high impact, run-ons, comma splices. So this is another one. It's as important. If I'm calling out that you're having trouble with sentence joining or surface errors, sometimes we call them, it would really behoove you, it would be in your best interest to really analyze these slides at your own pace and understand what you're doing, or be able to identify when something is a complete sentence and when it's not. So I'm gonna just kind of trot through here. Everybody writes, you got to proofread. That much is for sure true, as we all know. And me too. I'm right in there with you. First of all, you've got to identify sentences that can stand alone. Those are independent clauses, okay? And I try to make it as simple as possible by using the same sentence for all of the examples, even the other punctuation issue. So I love Santa Barbara is a complete sentence. I'd like to stay here indefinitely, complete sentence. These are the only ways you can join them. Period, uppercase, like two sentences, comma and, comma or, comma but, comma nor, or a semicolon. That's how you use a semicolon for the most part. There's another way to use a semicolon for a list, but we don't care about that. I'm only telling you these are the things that go wrong most often with most students. And if I've said sentence joining to you, make sure you are having a cup of coffee and trying to get this in. If you just like look at it or glance and go, we don't like that. it's got to penetrate, you know, because you have to be able to spot it in your own writing. So if you see that I have pointed it out on your assignment for this week, it's up to you to figure out, that is a sentence, that's a sentence, and I only put a comma. So we're just trotting through. This is, what are the top 2 errors? This first sentence that's underlined, that's a mistake that people make, and it's so evil because it looks fine, but it's not. I love Santa Barbara's a sentence, and I'd like to stay here indefinitely. Nowhere in this menu is just the word and. You see how it's comma, and, comma, or, comma, but it's a little package. You got to do the package. Okay, so this is the other problem. And many of you, surface errors, I won't go through and do all of them, but I'll point out one. And if you did it once, you can pretty much assume that it's slipping by your gatekeeping, okay? So here it is. I love Santa Barbara, comma, I'd like to stay here indefinitely. That is a comma splice. It isn't nice, and that's an error. And, you know, again, it won't sound like an error. Don't do the thing where you think, if I go by how it sounds, you know, if I was saying it, I'll know there's a pause. That won't pan out. How you read something and how it is technically, grammatically, not really the same. Punctuation can really help you read something the way the author intends, but it won't guide you on the technical issues. Okay, so what's the plan? What are the options? This is how you can join them. Period, uppercase, comma and, comma so, semicolon. Okay, and I only have 4 there because the other ones don't make any sense. If you say, but I'd like to stay here, that wouldn't make sense. So of course there's meaning. Meaning trumps everything. And then this, I say not so fast, all right? Because there's a little tiny thing that can happen that can mess you up. And again, this goes back to identifying, is it a complete sentence? Are there 2 complete sentences? I love Santa Barbara and would like to stay here indefinitely. It's a fine sentence exactly like that. The thing of it is, the I is gone. There's no I would like to stay here indefinitely. So you don't need comma and. Now that is just the way it is, kids. It seems too tricky because you just take out the one word and it really alters whether you're joining sentences correctly. Okay, so again, it goes back. You have to be able to see which segments are which part is a complete sentence. That's going to be like the key element of how you figure out how to join them. And your sentences are complicated. They're not, I love Santa Barbara, I want to stay here indefinitely. They're to-do, when, because they get complicated. So you have to be able to identify the segments as complete sentences or not, and then punctuate them accordingly. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that one and I'm going to go back to the notes. Okay, so now you got to snap out of it. The other issue, and I'm going to say this before I show you the slides, but you have a chance to really understand it. And this is the other sentence joining issue. There's only 2 things: putting sentences next to each other and joining them improperly, or not identifying what's called subordinating conjunction. Don't panic. All that means is words like when, if I love Santa Barbara, I will stay here indefinitely. When you put in if, because, when, even though, although, words like that, and there's a passel of them, there's a batch of them, then it makes whatever they're attached to not a complete sentence. So it alters the landscape. And there's only 2 rules about how you punctuate that. Okay, so a subordinating conjunction, I had a little debate with my brother whether I was going to use that word, that phrase, because people go, grammar talk. It's just words like when, if, because, although, that kind of thing. So we're going to look at this. I'm going to trot through, but if I did it on your paper And you should be using because, when, if, and starting sentences with those. I mean, that's good writing. You do want to kind of vary your syntax and have sentences like that. Okay, so I don't know, maybe you can weigh in whether you think I should call them subordinating conjunctions. Is it freaking you out? Or I should just not say what it is, just words like because, when, if, while. They change how sentences are punctuated. And yes, you should. Some students say, hey, can I begin a sentence because? Yes, indeed. Very good. You should. Okay. So here are the rules. I love Santa Barbara is a complete sentence. Because I love Santa Barbara is not. It can't stand alone grammatically, and it needs a complete sentence to prop it up. Okay. So this is how you do it. Because I love Santa Barbara, comma, I will stay here. Okay, that's correct. I will stay here, complete sentence. Because I love Santa Barbara, not. So you notice a simple comma is not what's on that menu of joining complete sentences. It's different. So here we go. Now comes the twist. When the phrase with the subordinating conjunction, like the when, the if, and all that, comes before the sentence that can stand alone, it needs a comma. Because I love Santa Barbara, comma, I will stay here. But when you flip it, when you change it around, and that conjunction comes after the sentence that can stand alone, no comma. I will stay. So here it's correct. I will stay here because I love Santa Barbara. So all it matters, all you have to do is say, is the because, when, if, although before a sentence that can stand alone, or is it after? If it's before, comma. If it comes after, no comma. I didn't make the rules, but that's how it is. So what are the mistakes? These are the mistakes. And if I, highlighted something, so this is a fragment, you might want to take a look at this. And a lot of you, I sent you to the link for this because it'll make more sense as you let it soak in. Some of you probably are kind of drifting away. I mean, I can't really speak to your concentration on this, but when you look at your own sentence and then you take a look at the systems here, you'll have more luck in getting it really in to your understanding, because that's the only way that this is gonna help you. So these are the worst mistakes that you can make, which it's kind of like going to a job interview, looking like a slob or something like that. It doesn't look good. You want to put your best foot forward. Again, they're really noticeable mistakes. Okay. So no comma, but it needs, because I love Santa Barbara, I will stay here. That's a big mistake. There's no comma, it needs one. This one is, look at my double guys. There's double guys of concern. I will stay here. Okay, that's fine. And then because I love Santa Barbara, that is one of the most common errors that newer writers make, let's just say, or students, let's say. Because it sounds fine if you were reading and it makes sense that it's next to it, but all I ever look at is a sentence. Okay, I just look at what are you trying to pass off as a sentence. That's not a sentence, because I love Santa Barbara, and yet it's presented as one. Okay, so remember, there's double guys right there. So anytime you begin a sentence with when, if, because, it should not be the only sentence construction that is in that section. It depends. It's called a dependent clause. It depends on having an independent sentence that comes after it. Okay. Okay, so, and then I'll just leave this part. This is, look at this, let's eat grandpa and let's eat grandpa. It just tells you that punctuation matters. It changes everything. Now the grandpa one, it changes the meaning, but the ones that I'm covering with you are more subtle, and they may impact how people view what you've written in ways you don't realize, but I'm telling you, it's a big deal. So if I've called you out on this, and you know what, on assignments, I'm going to go back now. In assignments, I do not mind. I mean, I am not grading you on, I'm more or less you have to follow the instructions, yes. But I'm not grading you on, word choice, or I'm trying to use it as a moment so that we can fix these things now, so that when you write your papers, you'll be good to go. All right. So this is it's just for your benefit that I'll call you on these. Don't worry about, being downgraded. Now, if you've misread the text, or you keep using talks and says because you didn't look at the slides, well, maybe there'll be a little impact on a 10-point assignment. But really, we're just preparing you for writing the essays, and we want you to get that straight. So I'm going to find things that I think are really helpful to you if you learn to fix them. And you can also go to the Writing Center. Now, remember, you can click. There's a place for you at the, actually, this is another, down here at the bottom of the notes for today is another writing lab, and you can get all kinds of help there too. And here's the link to that. So these are the hours that they're open. And those are English teachers from SBCC who are there ready to help you. So if you find that I may have pointed out something, some sentence joining, something like that, and you're not quite sure how to correct it, or you just want to keep talking about it. And what I've learned lately, after learning all this technology, how to construct these Canvas, you got to let it soak in. You got to mess with it for a little while before you really will understand. Okay, I know that was a lot, but I'm going to keep sending you these links. I'm kind of using them like a nag, because that's how it's going to go. So if I see that sentence joining is when you're putting two complete sentences incorrectly next to each other because you haven't used comma and, comma or, comma but, semicolon, or period uppercase. And the other problem is you're using words like although, when, if, because, and you're either not putting a comma in or you're creating a fragment. Okay, so there we go. So I'm just going to say a few more things again, and that we're recording this, and I don't want it to take too long because I know that people don't really like to watch the whole darn thing, and that's fine. Okay, so I'm just showing you a couple of responses. Then we had Olympia LaPointe on overcoming fear. You all had the most interesting things to say in that discussion about fear, and everyone really was forthcoming. It was super interesting. This is somebody wrote this: how refreshing it was that LaPointe spoke of the endurance and resilience it takes to counter fear. She was surely had a lot of endurance, that gal. I mean, she just kept coming back even though she failed and got hurt, and man, she just kept bouncing back up. It's interesting to me that fear used to be a survival mechanism for early humans, and now it has become something that can hold us back from our full potential. I thought that was interesting because we've all heard, people are anxious now, even though the bear is not after us. We just kind of churning in our own, stew half of the time. So fear is kind of an interesting psychological topic. And then somebody responded, this is a different one. I liked when you said, and this is, I'm just telling you, this is a good way to respond. There's guidelines for responding to people. You can just say, I liked what you said, or also this, or kind of like improv, yes, and. Fear will not just go away because you recognize it, you are feeling it, this person is quoting what another student said, which I thought was kind of fun. You can quote each other. And I'm quoting you all as well in the comments. You'll say, I'll put a comment, and then I'll put what you wrote in quotes. And that just should solidify your understanding of what quotes are used for, attribute, source. Okay, fear doesn't go away just because you recognize you're feeling it. As I totally agree, sometimes you just have to jump in head first in order to take it down. I used to have an irrational fear of roller coasters. And then as a kid, as diving towards a possible death strapped to a seat with no control. It terrified me, but as I got older, I simply forced myself onto the ride, and now I love them. That was a really good application of what was said previously. Now there's grammatical problems in there, which I didn't bother with because it's a discussion. I won't really do anything grammatically in discussion. So it's a free for all. So go crazy. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and let me look at the chat. Let's see if we have questions, and then we're going to, okay. Okay, something I found is to watch it once and play the audio as I read. Oh, all right. Yes. I would. Okay, so the question is it accurate to refer to the TED Talks as speeches? I think you're wise to ask this question, and I think you already know the answer because they don't really seem like speeches, because speechifying has a more formal defined quality. I would call them the talk, because everyone is so familiar with what they are in this talk. I think we're going to call them talks. Speeches have kind of a, you know, maybe it's going to be a political speech, or it's going to be really formal. And in these TED Talks, you can see that there's a formula they use to make them inviting and personable and kind of like a chit chat with your own life experience. And I've heard that they are practiced again and again and again. And these elements absolutely must be in there. And the funny thing is, so Emily is saying that she thinks it's helpful to watch it, just let it in, great, and then play the audio as you read the transcript. And that's really good. You're going to read this one, I think it's this week, The Happy Secrets to Better Work. And that one, and I think you're going to answer questions about it. That one is a really fun talk, and it's got really interesting information in it. But if you really read it and listen to it carefully, you'll see that a lot of it is just him trying to be entertaining. He's certainly telling anecdotes, little stories that are illustrative. They illustrate his point, but some of the time he's just kind of goofing off, you know, and he speaks really quickly. So it's a really, you really got to read the transcript on that one. Graham, I cannot, off the top of my head, he's saying, I got here late. I was wondering what I missed between 1:35 and 1:55. I went over, you know what I'm going to do to that question? Yes, and then I am recording it, and you can look, but you know what? I do know that nobody wants to go through it all. I'm going to share the screen. So, Graham, remember that we have these notes. It's called class notes, and on the left-hand side, I'll show you the link. It's on the left-hand navigation bar, and it's called English 110 class notes. And this is what we talked about. Links, if links aren't working, let me know, because they do kind of go defunct here and there, and I won't necessarily be aware of that. But you can often find all of the things that I've got here. Some of the written ones, maybe not. But yeah, I need to know if a link goes down so that I can fix it. We did close reading. And I made a spectacle out of people who didn't read the assignment closely, because it had 2 parts. And the first part gave you the skills for the second part. So the people who did not do the first part often stumbled along in the second part, revealing that they hadn't read the first part. So more than ever with the talks and with the articles, the words matter. You're here to construct worlds out of words, and it matters what the words actually are. And we looked at an example in which the brain will fill in things that aren't in the talk. You'll see, you know, your brain just wants to do it. The brain always wants to organize. And if you've skimmed, or if you've just gotten the first part of it, or you're a little hazy on it, you'll be surprised what your mind will do to fill in the gaps. And it isn't always what's on the page. So that's why back in the olden times, when we had covered wagons and paper and pens, people would take notes. You take notes all over the page, which still is a good idea. And let me just tell you why that's a good idea. But anyways, just to answer Graham, you can look, this is what we went over. And then we did an example of somebody who did great. And then I went through the slides, and then the sentence joining. I've been starting to comment on people's sentence joining in some of the assignments so that you can start getting that right for your essays, but it isn't something that you can fix in a second. You really have to try to understand the concept and the principles. And some people glaze over at the very thought of addressing that, but you know, just take your medicine, figure it out, and then you'll have it in your back pocket the rest of your life. And it is a good thing to have, even if it doesn't matter what your job is. You're going to have to write something sometime. And when you know how to punctuate, it's pretty cool. You know, you never kind of get caught. All right. So that is what, okay. So the last thing we're going to do is that we're going to look at the assignments for this week. And everybody, make sure you looked at the comments so that you don't commit any crimes that you committed this week, like grammatically or whatever. And again, I don't grade assignments in that way. Assignments are really just to help you. Unless you didn't read the assignment or aren't doing it accurately. There are rubrics on the assignments, you know, but I'm generally kind of generous with those because I just want you to do some things so we can practice and I can give you feedback. Because once it comes to your essays, I mean, I will comment on your rough draft, but then that's it. I'm just going to end up grading your actual essay because you'll have had practice with paragraphs. You'll have example essays. I mean, our work will be done, you know, we'll have gone back and forth quite a bit. So pay attention to those comments. Okay, so I think I got to share the screen one more time. Let's look at the assignments for, I'm just going to do the desktop again. Okay, so that we're going to go, I'm going to get rid of this window and we're going to go to, let's do these, you guys, the classes are the same. Oh, I do want to tell you something else. This may or may not affect you in the least. One of the things I've been working with the Resource Center in technology is actually linking the Google Docs in Canvas, which is kind of a complicated thing to do. So sometimes you may see in an assignment, it'll say link to doc. That just means if you click on that link, it'll go to the document and the document will pretty much look the same as what you see there in Canvas. It's for people who can't see. So, you know, just be patient, go to the links, link around, go where you need to go, and don't lose track of what you're doing. You just, if you go down a road of links and then you can't get back to the assignment, just start over and get back to the assignment. Okay, so Writing Center is right here. We are sharing the screen. And now the last two announcements, there's our link. Oh, look at me. Remember the assignments from this past week have 2 parts. So I even sent you a reminder of that. When you resubmit, oh, everybody, your assignments are generally open a week before, sometimes earlier than a week before they're due and a week after. So there's kind of a window where you can resubmit or submit. I won't always know that you've resubmitted something. I'll have to kind of go back and go through that. And that's kind of a glitch in this system. It's like, am I gonna go through this every single day to see if one student had resubmitted something? That's kind of an odd thing. So sometimes if you wanna call it to my attention, that's totally fine. And say, oh, I resubmitted it, or I didn't get credit for that. You know, just make sure you're looking at the grade and you're seeing what's what, and you've read the comments, all that stuff. Okay, so we're just going to go to, okay, so modules. We're just marching through chronologically. Here we go. You all did this. Very important assignments. That's the other thing. This business of the summary. These paragraphs, and we're going to do introductory paragraph, summary paragraph, and an analysis paragraph. They could not be more important because those are the building blocks of your essays. So after that, you should be ready to go. You may even use some of the paragraphs that you write because you're going to select one of these readings that you've already done to write your essay about. You're going to respond. And if you've been paying attention, there's plenty of sample essays here that you could see how that looks. And believe me, I have a million instructions that you'll have to read every word of. Okay, so here we are. Summary of the power of intro. Okay, so now you've practiced it. I've given you some feedback. Maybe you used talks about, maybe you misrepresented, maybe you did a great job. You're going to do another great job. Here you go. So this is the talk and the now this is a document that I had some trouble with links, but no problem. You can get to the, let's just see. Yeah, you can get to everything. And you'll see, I just went to the link and now I feel like, oh no, how do I get back to the assignment? Just click up top. Okay, so you're gonna listen to the talk and read the transcript, kind of like Emily was just saying. First, just watch it, maybe listen, maybe I should put listen in there. And then here's an example. A student wrote this summary, and it follows all those principles. Don't make me link to the slides again. Although, you know what? Look at those slides a couple of times. It'll be helpful. So in here, as we move towards writing your own essay, you can review this essay right here. This is a student essay who used this talk to write their essay, their first essay. So I'm giving you the answers to the test. You're going to take one of the things we've read, you choose whichever one you want, and you're going to write your first essay about it. But we're practicing first. We're going to do the summaries. We're going to do, you got to figure out analysis. But here's an example at the bottom here. And then the interesting thing about these, if you have the time and inclination, I know I'm kind of pushing it here. It's a lot of, you know, extra delightful things for you. But the power of introverts, here's one student wrote an essay, and then a different student wrote a different one with a different tone. I remember this one student, she had a more conversational tone. It was still academic, but it was super lively. And you can just see the difference in how different your alls can be. I mean, it isn't that they're all some sort of robotic academic. Academic writing is lively, and it's various, and it depends on your voice and how it's going to sound. There's these conventions we got to follow, which keeps our thinking really sharp, which makes everything more interesting, right? So, and then here's the introduction. So I'm going to give you little hints at what's to come here. There's an introduction, a summary, single point analysis, paragraphs, conclusion. And a conclusion is not, my friends, saying what you already said. It's going to be some sort of new element, point to the future, and say it in a different way, you know, write it, articulate it in yet a more precise way, use a fresh example, something else to conclude, because sometimes people have that in their mind, like, I will now write about 1, 2, and 3. I have written about 1, 2, and 3. No, it has to be lively, it has to be fun. Oh, look, I gave you a little extra credit down here. So read all the words of the assignment. Okay, so we're going back to assignments. And, oh no, that's not what we're doing, because I can go to assignments in that way. I'm not sure that you can, because it's very important that you go in order, because the assignments, as you can see, are built. First, we got to do MLA. Then I think our next thing we're practicing summary again, and you're absorbing the content, more fun, of the talks. They're very interesting. So, oh yeah, so you have these are really good ones. Power of Introverts, very interesting. It'll be interesting. If some of you write about that and what you would have to say about that. And here's the happy secret to better work. And again, this is like one of my favorites, and it really makes a lot of sense. And these questions are designed to help you retain the concepts that are in there. But it's a good one to write about. You can even practice some of the things that he's talking about or apply them to yourself. Let's see what else we have. Oh, look, I did another extra credit on this one too. And it's at the end, because I'm really being a nag about, are you reading the words of the assignment? I know it's tempting, and I am the worst criminal. I commit this crime all the time. I don't want to read the instructions. I don't want to, but finally I must. And at the top here, you see the link to the document. And that's just this new way. If you won't all see that, it's only on one of the sections. But if you see link to doc, it just sends you to a Google Doc that looks exactly like this. Okay. So remember also that if you're not sure about something, just give it a try anyway. Oh yeah, and then there's grades. We're not going to do that. So that's it. Let me stop the share and see if anyone's alive. Lucas is alive. Young. You're alive. Berenice, Sophia. Okay, so I think, let's see. Oh no. Okay, does anybody have any questions? This week is much the same as last week. You have 2 assignments. I've embedded 2 little extra credit nuggets in there if you're really paying attention to the assignments. And try to, whatever comment I made on the first one, try to fix for the second one. And again, everybody is submitting, most people are submitting a Google Doc and it's no problem. Some people are submitting in a way where I cannot get into the text. So I've had to kind of copy and paste their whole thing and then insert things. It's not as efficient, or probably not as helpful to you. So always try to do the Google Doc so that I can be on there editing away and making suggestions. Okay. All right. I've really said a lot of things. Any questions? Oh, David Chung, did you see we read your homework? It was so great.
Yeah, I was actually here the whole time.
Well done. It was really good. You had great work.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Very good. And if it, oh, you know, here's the other thing. If any of you don't want me excerpting things of your work, that you have to let me know, because I'm an excerpter. I like to cut and paste, so that you can kind of see that, you know, the brilliance of your classmates. Okay, so you've got 2 assignments this week. I think we're just going to march along, and in the back of your mind, you're reading these things. And don't forget that there's, you can kind of look at some of the assignments that are coming and start thinking about which one you think you could really do a good job writing an essay about. Here's the other thing I'm going to tell you in advance. The first essay, you pick one of whatever we've read so far. We've accumulated a list. You pick one from the list, and then you're going to execute it in the way that these students have the examples, and I'll give you instructions. It's pretty straightforward. But the second one, you're going to need to use 2 texts. So it's something to keep in the back of your mind if you think you see 2 that would go really well together. And we'll discuss the particulars of that, but you don't want to use it up on the first one. So I'll remind you of that before you choose which one you're going to write about. But as we accumulate different texts, the first essay is about 1. The second essay incorporates a second. So we're going to start working with more than one source. Okay, but for now, everybody's doing good. You're marching along. We're just doing the building blocks, and make sure to read the comments that I gave you. And if you're one of having those punctuation things, you've got to wade through it, you know. And if I can help you in some way, if you want to write a question on your, you know, make it bold or something so that I can see exactly where your question is. If you have that punctuation problem, which is kind of like, it's not a third of all my students this semester, but it's a pretty common kind of a problem. So, okay, any other questions? Sophia, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good. Berenice, are you there?
Yeah.
Yes, good, okay. Young? Just reading people's names, I'm just seeing who's here.
Just make everyone talk.
Why aren't you showing your face? Jake, are you okay? Jake.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, have
I'm
you
here.
handed in all your assignments? Can you look?
I missed one, but I sent you an email. And you responded already.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, we're good.
My brain's gone bad. Okay. All right. So, yeah, I think I said to you, you can use your 1 postponement, something like that. That was kind of hard.
Yeah, it was something like that.
Well, because I can't conduct all kinds of, it's hard for me to keep track of everybody's why it's late or whatever. So I just kind of, and everybody, just to reiterate, there's a program on Canvas where I do the grading. It automatically deducts points. It automatically says it's missing. I don't determine that. It just does it automatically. I put in the number grade, and then if it's late, it takes it down. It's all kind of automatic. So I can override it if we run into trouble, but that is part of the wonders of Canvas. Okay.
How many points does it deduct if it's late?
It goes by percentage. Don't make me do math. But it usually turns out if it's a day late, it goes to 9 from 10. And listen to this. So the assignments, remember, in the bigger picture, assignments are worth 20%, and your essays are worth 80. So it's mostly going to be that you get these skills as you're going. If you get a 9 or an 8 or even a 5 somewhere along the line, it's not going to be the worst thing, though. It's not going to impact your grade very much. So, and you know, again, those assignments are designed to help you understand the text, to have you practice these techniques so that writing the essays like falling off a log. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So keep track of your grades, and remember, I put little extra credit things. Sometimes I like to make you say the secret word. It's kind of fun. Graham, anything? Are you raising your hand?
I had a question about how it deducts the points. Is it like at 12:01 you lose 10%, or is it like after 24 hours you lose up to 10%?
They go by midnight. On the day that it's due, it's the 24 o'clock. On that day, after midnight, it's late. And then it takes
Okay.
10%. Yeah. That's how it goes. That way I don't have to do math. I don't want to do math. Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's fair. It's math. It's automatic, and hopefully, I mean, the whole thing of it is, if you're just systematically keeping up and doing it, the writing the essays won't be hard, and you'll improve your writing, and you'll be able to do this academic project of, you know, speaking, writing in that way. Okay. Anything else? Okay. All right. I'm going to stop recording, and I'm going to send the video to all the absent people. I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to be glued to my every word, but I'm doing it anyway. Okay.
How sweet.
All right, everybody, have a nice day. And I'll be here same time tomorrow, but I'm not going to be on Zoom, but I could be if you want to have a chat. Okay. So do your homework. And, hey, and you know, do your homework today or tomorrow so that I'm a little more available to you if you have a question, but I think you're going to know what to do.